The morning sun filtered through the gauzy curtains of Tallulah Willis's living room, casting soft gold onto stacks of sketchbooks, half-finished paintings, and a cluttered coffee table brimming with candles and crystals. Her dog, Pilaf, snoozed lazily in the corner, oblivious to the sudden knock that echoed through the house. Tallulah frowned. She wasn't expecting anyone. When she opened the door, there was no one there. Just a small weathered envelope resting on the welcome mat. Her name was written in looping, elegant cursive that tugged instantly at her memory. She knelt, hands trembling slightly as she picked it up. Her heart skipped. That handwriting, it was impossible. It belonged to her grandmother, Evelyn Willis, a woman who had passed away nearly 2 decades earlier. Goosebumps prickled her skin. Her first instinct was that it must be a prank. But as she turned the envelope over, the back was sealed with a wax emblem, the same tiny willow tree her grandmother used to draw on birthday cards. Her throat tightened. Carefully, she broke the seal. Inside was a single folded letter, yellowed at the edges but remarkably well preserved. She unfolded it, breath shallow. "My dearest Tallulah," it began, "if you are reading this, then the moment has come. There is something your parents chose to keep hidden from you, not out of malice but from love and fear. It is time for you to know." The words blurred as her eyes welled with tears. The letter continued, hinting at a family secret, one that had been carefully guarded for years. Evelyn's words were cryptic, yet tender, filled with references to a gift of love kept safe and memories buried long ago. To find the truth, return to where your story began. The cabin in the woods. You'll remember it when you see it. Tallulah sat back on her heels, stunned. The cabin. Her mind rushed to childhood summers spent in the mountains of Idaho, swimming in cold lakes, roasting marshmallows by firelight, her parents laughing, holding hands. It had been years since she even thought of that place. Her fingers trembled as she reread the letter 3 more times, searching for some rational explanation. Was it a mistake? A cruel joke? Or something else entirely? The silence of the house suddenly felt heavier. Her mind flooded with memories, fragments of hushed conversations between her parents, long silences that once seemed insignificant, but now burned with strange new meaning. Before we uncover this unbelievable secret together, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming and incredible real-life stories like this one. She folded the letter, pressing it to her chest. A knot formed in her stomach, fear mingling with curiosity. She could ignore this, pretend it was nothing. But deep down, something stirred. A pull. A whisper of the past, calling her to uncover a truth that had waited far too long. Tallulah glanced around her home, the place where she had built her own little sanctuary of healing, art, and growth. But now that sanctuary felt temporarily hollow, shadowed by questions no longer willing to stay silent. She grabbed her phone, scrolled to her parents' contacts, then paused. No, not yet. Not until she knew what she was dealing with. The answers weren't here in Los Angeles, they were in Idaho. The decision crystallized. Tallulah stood, walked over to her bookshelf, and pulled out an old leather-bound journal where she kept mementos from her childhood. Between the pages was a faded photo of the cabin, wooden, rustic, set against a backdrop of towering pine trees and snow-capped peaks. With the photo in one hand and the letter in the other, she whispered to herself, "I have to know." And with that, she booked a flight. The sharp chill of Idaho's mountain air hit Tallulah as she stepped out of the rental car. The familiar crunch of gravel under her boots sent a ripple of nostalgia through her chest. Before her stood the cabin, weathered but sturdy, its wooden frame leaning slightly under the weight of time. The pine trees whispered in the wind, just as they had when she was a child. She hadn't been here in nearly 20 years. As she approached the front door, 1,000 memories came flooding back. Her father teaching her how to build a fire, her mother braiding her hair on the porch swing, the sound of rain against the metal roof. But now those memories felt tinged with something else, a mystery. She pushed the door open. She pushed the... Dust floated in the sunlight, and the scent of aged cedar wrapped around her like a long-forgotten embrace. Everything was almost exactly as they'd left it. The mismatched furniture, the old quilt on the couch, even her initials carved into the wooden beam by the kitchen. Clutching the letter, Tallulah whispered, "Okay, Grandma, what am I supposed to find?" She started searching. Opening cabinets, pulling back rugs, feeling along the edges of the floorboards. Every creak, every hollow echo sent her pulse racing. After hours of searching with nothing to show but dust on her jeans and a splinter in her thumb, frustration began to gnaw at her. She sank onto the floor, staring out the window toward the lake in the distance. That's when her eyes caught it, a subtle, almost invisible outline in the wall behind the bookshelf. She stood, adrenaline spiking, and pushed the shelf aside with all her strength. Beneath layers of cobwebs was a small wooden door about the size of a cabinet panel, secured with an old latch. Heart pounding, she unhooked the latch and pulled. The hidden compartment revealed a narrow staircase leading upwards into the attic, a space she never knew existed. Climbing slowly, every step groaned under her weight until she reached the top. The attic smelled of dust and time. Light seeped through a tiny circular window, illuminating the clutter of old trunks, crates, and wooden boxes. Her eyes scanned everything until one particular box stood out, polished wood, the Willis family crest carved delicately into its lid. She knelt, fingertips tracing the crest. This has to be it. The box wasn't locked. Lifting the lid revealed carefully folded letters tied with a silk ribbon, faded Polaroid photos, and tucked beneath them all, a manila envelope marked with her name. Her breath caught as she opened it. Inside was a birth certificate, her name, her birthday, but something was off. The date. It wasn't her birthday. It was nearly 2 years earlier. Her hands trembled as she flipped the paper over, finding a note written in her grandmother's hand. For when the truth becomes a necessity, not a burden. Tallulah's heart raced as questions flooded her mind. Was it a mistake? A legal error? But no. Alongside the certificate were photographs of her parents, younger, smiling, but holding a baby. A baby that wasn't her. The timeline didn't fit. The realization hit like a tidal wave. This wasn't her birth certificate. It belonged to someone else, someone connected to her, someone her parents never told her about. Her breath grew shallow. Her fingers hovered over the stack of letters but froze. She wasn't ready. Not yet. Outside, the wind howled through the pines, as if the mountains themselves were whispering truths long buried. Tallulah sat back on her heels, staring at the box, her mind spinning. One thing was clear. Whatever this was, it was big. Bigger than she could have imagined. She needed answers. Real answers. And there was only one way to get them. She had to go home and ask her parents. The familiar skyline of Los Angeles came into view as Tallulah's plane descended. But this time, the city didn't feel like home. It felt like a battleground. Her fingers never left the envelope during the entire flight, gripping it like a lifeline, or a fuse, ready to ignite something unstoppable. The Uber ride to her parents' house was eerily quiet. Her mind raced with every possible scenario. What could possibly justify hiding something this monumental? Who was that baby? Was it someone she knew? Someone still out there? When the car pulled up in front of the house, the same sprawling Spanish-style home she'd known since childhood, her chest tightened. The bougainvillea still curled around the fence, and the faint scent of orange blossoms filled the air. Everything looked so normal, deceptively normal. Her mother, Demi, answered the door, her radiant smile faltering the instant she saw Tallulah's face. "Lula, honey, what's wrong?" Bruce appeared behind her, his familiar, steady presence filling the doorway. His brow furrowed as he noticed the tight grip Tallulah had on the folder. "We need to talk," Tallulah said, voice trembling but firm. "Now." Inside, the air grew heavy. Demi and Bruce exchanged glances, a silent, loaded conversation only parents could share. They led her to the living room, where sunlight filtered through sheer curtains onto the same couch where countless family memories had unfolded. Tallulah wasted no time. She pulled out the birth certificate and laid it on the coffee table between them. "Explain this." For a moment, neither of them moved. Bruce stared at it, jaw tightening. Demi's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes brimming with instant tears. "Oh God, Demi whispered. I didn't think... I thought we'd have more time. Bruce let out a heavy sigh, rubbing his hands over his face. I told you this day would come. Tallulah's voice cracked. Who is this? Whose birth certificate is this? Why does it have my name? Demi reached for her hand, but Tallulah instinctively pulled away. Please, just tell me the truth. There was a long, suffocating silence before Bruce finally spoke. Before you were born, before we even knew if we could have more children together, there was someone else, he began, his voice thick. A child. Our child. Tallulah blinked, barely able to process the words. We were so young, Demi continued, tears streaming down her face. And Hollywood was brutal. Our careers were exploding. Our lives were chaos. We made a choice, one that haunts me to this day. Bruce nodded. We were pressured. People told us it was the best thing. For us, for the baby. Adoption. A wave of nausea rolled through Tallulah. You had a child and gave them up and never told me, never told any of us? Demi sobbed quietly. It was supposed to be temporary. We always planned to find them, to bring them back when the time was right. But life, it got complicated, and the longer we waited, the harder it became to face it. Tallulah stood, pacing. Is this person out there, do they know? Bruce and Demi exchanged another glance, this one even heavier. They're not just out there, Bruce said softly. They've always been around. Tallulah froze. Her breath caught in her throat. What do you mean? Demi nodded, voice barely a whisper. They've been in your life, Lula. You know them. You've known them for years. The room spun. Her mind raced through every possible person. Family friends, distant cousins, people who floated in and out of her life. But no name, no face, fit perfectly. And yet, something deep inside her already feared she might know exactly who it was. She sank back into the couch, her hands trembling. Tell me who. But neither parent answered. Not yet. Bruce leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles turned white. Demi wiped her tears, trying to steady her breath, but her voice was barely above a whisper. It's Scout, she said. For a moment, Tallulah didn't understand. The name hit her ears like static, confusing, impossible. Scout, she echoed, her voice cracking. No, that's not possible. But as she looked into her parents' faces, faces filled with a strange blend of fear, guilt, and aching love, the truth settled in like ice water in her veins. Scout LaRue Willis, her own sister, the woman she had grown up idolizing, fighting with, laughing alongside, her sister, her confidant, her partner in crime during reckless teenage escapades, but also the secret. The child her parents had given up in the earliest days of their chaotic, high-pressure Hollywood lives. The adoption that was supposed to be temporary, never intended to sever bonds, but made irreversible by time, circumstance, and fear. Bruce's voice was thick. When Scout was born, it was during the worst of it. Paparazzi camping on our lawn. Studios threatening to pull contracts if we didn't keep our image clean. We didn't know how to be parents and celebrities. People were telling us adoption was the best option, that she'd have a stable life. We thought we could make it right later. Demi broke in, shaking her head. We stayed close. She was placed with someone we trusted, someone within our circle. She never left our lives completely. We watched her grow, visited constantly, and eventually, when the time felt less dangerous, we brought her back into the family fully. But we never told anyone the truth, not even her. Tallulah's hands trembled uncontrollably. She doesn't know. Bruce shook his head. Not like this. She knows. She knows there was something different, but she doesn't know the full story. Memories started crashing over Tallulah. Scout's occasional remarks about feeling different, her unexplained anxiety during family reunions, the way their parents seemed extra protective, always circling around her with a kind of guilt hidden behind love. All those moments, they made sense now. A sob burst from her chest. Not from anger, not from betrayal, but from a heartbreaking mix of love, confusion, and overwhelming sorrow. "She's my sister," Tallulah whispered, pressing her hands to her face. "She's always been my sister." But she didn't even know how much. Demi reached out. This time Tallulah didn't pull away. "We wanted to protect both of you. We thought if we buried it deep enough it wouldn't define you, that you could just live." "But it does define us," Tallulah said, voice cracking. "It's part of who we are." Bruce nodded, swallowing hard. "And it's time to stop hiding it." Silence settled, heavy but laced with a new clarity. The air shifted. The burden was finally spoken aloud, but the consequences hadn't yet arrived. Tallulah wiped her tears. "She deserves to know, from me, from us." Bruce squeezed her shoulder. "Are you sure?" "Yes," Tallulah said, her voice firmer now. "She's my sister, and if this is the truth, then it's ours to face together." The next day arrived like the calm before a storm. Tallulah drove to Scout's house, her hands gripping the wheel until her knuckles ached. The familiar road felt strange now, as if she was heading toward an entirely different universe. When Scout opened the door, smiling as always, completely unaware of the tidal wave about to hit, Tallulah's breath caught. "Hey, Lula, what's up?" Tallulah's voice shook. "We need to talk. It's about us. About everything." Scout blinked, her smile fading. "Okay. You're scaring me." Tallulah stepped inside, shut the door behind her, and with a trembling breath said the words that would change both of their lives forever. For a long moment, the only sound in the room was the gentle ticking of the clock on Scout's mantle. Tallulah sat on the couch, hands folded tightly in her lap, heart pounding so hard she could barely breathe. Scout's brow furrowed. "Lula, what's going on? You're scaring me." Tallulah's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "I found something that changes everything. About us, about how we grew up." She pulled the birth certificate from her bag and placed it on the coffee table between them. Scout leaned forward, confused, scanning the paper, her eyes catching her own name, her own birthday. But the wrong details. Her confusion turned quickly to alarm. "Wait, what is this?" she whispered. Tallulah's voice trembled. "It's your birth certificate, the real one. And there's something Mom and Dad never told us. Never told you." Scout's face went pale. "What are you talking about?" Taking a deep breath, Tallulah said it, the words sharp and raw, but filled with love. "Scout, you were adopted. By Mom and Dad, but not the way it normally happens. You were their biological child first. They had you when everything in their world was chaos. The press, Hollywood, their careers. They thought adoption was the only way to give you safety, but they never really let you go. You grew up in their orbit, but they never told you the whole truth." For a moment, Scout didn't move. She blinked rapidly, as if trying to process whether this was some kind of sick joke. Her mouth opened, then closed again. No, that doesn't make sense. I'm their daughter. I've always been their daughter." "You are," Tallulah said quickly, tears spilling down her cheeks. "You are. Nothing changes that. You've always been my sister, you've always been theirs, but this is part of how it started. Something they were too afraid or too ashamed to tell." Scout stood abruptly, pacing, hands on her head. Why wouldn't they tell me? Why would they let me go like that? Why would they pretend everything was fine? Because they thought it was the only way to protect you. And then they didn't know how to undo it. Tears streamed down Scout's face now, but beneath the shock something else flickered, something softer, something fragile but real. "And you came to tell me this?" she asked, her voice cracking. Tallulah stood, reaching out. "Because I love you, and you deserve the truth. You've always deserved it. You always will." For a long beat, Scout stared at her, and then suddenly she crossed the room and pulled Tallulah into the fiercest, tightest hug either of them had ever shared. Both of them sobbed, not from pain alone, but from the release of years of unspoken questions and unseen scars finally exposed to the light. "I don't care how it started," Scout whispered into her sister's hair. "You're my sister. You always were, you always will be. Tallulah squeezed her tighter. Always. In the weeks that followed, the family came together. Bruce, Demi, Rumer, Scout, Tallulah, and their extended loved ones. There were more tears, more long conversations filled with apologies, regret, but also overwhelming love. What had once been a secret became a bridge, not just to healing but to a deeper understanding of what family truly means. The scars didn't disappear, but they became part of the tapestry, a reminder that even broken beginnings can lead to beautiful, unbreakable bonds. Tallulah often reflected on how close she had come to never knowing, to letting that letter remain unopened. But now, looking at Scout, laughing over coffee, sharing stories, she knew the truth was the greatest gift of all. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe and click on the video right here on your screen to dive into another inspiring story that you won't want to miss.